Perfect. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having me this morning. I really appreciate Jim and the folks at Lehigh Valley Humanists for having me this morning. And just a heads up, you may have some folks tuning in online that will be joining the Zoom. So just a heads up. If you see anyone that may either be trolling or anything like that, you can perhaps just manage that. But there will be some folks who just want to tune in just to join virtually the same way I'm joining you all virtually. So thank you once again. And I will give my bio in just a moment. I was invited to speak on behalf of, of course, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and how we can do so more within our secular spaces. And so I'm very happy to do that. And I do have a PowerPoint presentation that I will be sharing now with you all. And then we should have some time for Q&A once the presentation is done. So give me just a moment and I will, it should be sharing in just a moment and I will put it in presentation mode. All right. So can everyone see my screen okay? Yes? Okay. So yes, this is a conversation with myself, Mandisa Thomas, on this Sunday morning of August 4th at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And just a bit about me. I am the founder and president of Black Nonbelievers Incorporated, which got started here in the Atlanta, Georgia area, which I'm currently located. I reside in Fayetteville, which is south of the city of Atlanta, but it's in the metro area. The photo that you see pictured there is from a billboard that the Freedom from Religion Foundation produced. You may have seen it online, as well as in some local newspapers and in other ads. It was from their I'm Secular and I Vote campaign in 2022. And I was the face of the Atlanta billboard, which was located on the corners of Cortlandt Street and John Wesley Dobbs Avenue. And incidentally, I found out later that John Wesley Dobbs was a very famous civil rights activist whose core issue was voting. So it was very apropos to have that billboard location there in the downtown area, which is not too far from Georgia State University and the state capitol. And I am a New York City native originally, born and raised in New York City. Moved to the Atlanta, Georgia area at the age of 21 years old, and I'll be 48 in September. So that shows you how long I've been there. And I pretty much had a secular / non-religious upbringing. So my parents made a very conscious decision to raise my brothers and I non-religious. However, we were raised with the Black conscious mindset, meaning that we learned a lot about racial injustice as well as history of all kinds, particularly Black history growing up, which has informed my activism along the way. And in these 13 years that I have been active within Black nonbelievers as well as the secular community. So I very much take that as it is a source of pride for me. And I hope that it always helps inform others about the various areas and perspectives that we all come from. I transitioned to full-time activism in 2018 due to the increasing demand and need to expand and grow the organization, as well as family, as well as tend to my family. My husband does have a chronic condition. He is technically disabled, but he still works from home. And so that allowed me to focus more on my activism as well as help with my family. And I do have a Patreon if you are so interested in supporting more of my personal work during my activism. And it's patreon.com/Mandisa Latifa. I share personal tidbits as well as community building tips and other areas and things that are coming up that I don't usually share with the general public. I was not expecting for this to become full time for me when I first got started in the movement. However, this is where things have gone, and I am very, very glad that they are here. So, and it is for that reason that I am here with you all today. And so I previously served on the boards for American Atheists and the American Humanist Association, in addition to what was formerly Foundation Beyond Belief and the Secular Coalition for America. I am an honorary board member of Humanist Global Charity, which is headed up by Phil Zuckerman. I was the recipient of the Secular Student Alliance Backbone Award in 2019, as well as the Freedom for Religion Foundation's Free Thought Heroine Award that same year. I was the Unitarian Universalist Humanist Association's Person of the Year in 2018. I was a co-recipient of the 2020 Harvard Humanist of the Year. And I also received the Irving and Annabelle Wolfson Award, which is presented by the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Worcester, Massachusetts, which is not too far from Boston, as well as not too far from Pennsylvania either. So, and to this date, I think I am still the first person of color to receive that award. And that's something I'm very, very proud of. I am also a member of the Godless Gospel Ensemble, which is a production of the Freedom from Religion Foundation and was brought about by Dan Barker contacting me. He conceptualized this music project 30 years ago, when he came out as an atheist after being a minister and Christian musician and composer. And so I was able to connect him with Andre Forbes, who was a former gospel producer and member of Black Nonbelievers. And so we have all created some wonderful music together, and we are working on an album. So there is more information that should be available very soon about that. We've done 2 performances so far. They are available on FFRF's YouTube page. And there is a link to the Godless Gospel Project, and we are still looking for singers. And so if you know anyone who is, a singer, it doesn't have to be extremely professional, but if you're able to sing in an ensemble, then we would love for you to be a part of it, because we have more along the way. Also, I am a certified humanist celebrant, which means that I officiate weddings and other life services. And I am also becoming a UIC mom. So my oldest son, who was my middle child, whose name is Isaiah, will be starting at the University of Illinois in Chicago in a few weeks. So he will be joining his sister, my daughter, who is my oldest child, who lives in Chicago already. She graduated from Johnson & Wales University back in 2018. And so now I have my second child going off to college, which I'm sure, as some of you know, is a journey in itself when we were going through school and then also putting our children through school. So I am now a UIC mom, and I'm really excited about helping my son go off on his new journey. So these are just a few things about me and the many things that I have going on. And one thing I always say especially about the recognition that has been received, is that I did not get into this for recognition, but it is nice when it comes. So I think it is very important to recognize the very important work that many of us are doing in this community, and any opportunities that we have to improve upon the work we do, we should take them. So just wanted to lay out some outcomes for this presentation. The first is to address blind spots when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And while I know that many of us in our communities may not think we have them, It is important to note that whether they are intentional or not, because of the different ways that we may have been raised, as well as coming from different generations, we definitely have blind spots that I think it is important for us to recognize. Like for us to encourage a positive approach to a very challenging subject. There are some things that I will be discussing and bringing up that might be very, very uncomfortable. So fair warning. However, I've always been solutions and outcome driven, or at least solutions driven, because outcomes will always will be there, and how we continue to refine and work on them will always be important. So it is to encourage a positive approach and to this very challenging subject. Also, identify long-term and practical solutions for improvement. And when I say practical, I mean things that we can actually do, that we can tangibly do once we are informed and armed with the right information. Education is great. I know many of us in our communities pride ourselves on having great educations and having resources, especially academic resources. However, it is important for us to continue to implement and put them into practice, because that's how we get better. And last but not least, definitely to gain support for Being's work, admittedly and immediately. So those are four, the four main outcomes for this presentation that I hope we are able to accomplish this morning. Definitely will leave some food for thought. And again, I hope that even in this short time that we are together, that we are able to make some headway here. So here are some of the challenges that I have that I've outlined for like DEI efforts, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion, which has become a very, very major topic and implementation tool in recent years. But here are some of the challenges of DEI efforts, especially among non-believers. And this is the 2024 version, because I have given this presentation before, but I do think that, as time has progressed and as we have seen changes in this movement, I think it was important to update as well as show a bit of how the cycle usually goes. So the first is usually semi-public acknowledgement of privilege and white supremacy. That has become more prevalent in our communities, in particular, in the secular community, I would say. And acknowledging that there are inequities in different communities and among different demographics. That has been, very much, that has been recognized. For sure. And especially as we are in this current political climate, we are just seeing it and discussing it more often. However, what this leads to is one-time meetings on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And because we didn't get to this space overnight, usually because injustice, and not even usually, injustice is institutional, meaning that it took time to implement. And we're talking about years, generations. So this is not an overnight problem, and it does not have an overnight solution. And I'll get more into that later. What usually happens next is wanting a certain type of person of color to speak on these issues, and still viewing them from what is considered a white lens. So oftentimes it comes from what would be the understandings of a privileged person, and having that perspective dominate over those who are experiencing it, and also tending to be a bit discomforted to the point where the conversation shuts down, and often efforts shut down. So this becomes a bit of a challenge as well. And then oftentimes the last part is that the burden of work falling on Black, Indigenous people of color, and then subsequently being unsupported long term. Like I said a few minutes ago, these institutional factors did not start overnight, and so they will not be resolved overnight. And I think that is something to keep in mind, especially when it comes to even working with your own groups, is that it will take more than this one session with us together for us to tackle these challenges. And the more we continue to incorporate that into our work, then the better chances we have of working towards being more progressive and getting better. There is something. The next slide is going to be, I have to touch on this because this came to my attention a few days ago. So some of you may be members. How many of you are members of the Center for Inquiry or are familiar with the Center for Inquiry? Now, you can raise your hand if you, because I can see you in the audience. Are you familiar with the Center for Inquiry, which is based out of Buffalo, New York, and as well as their magazine, Free Inquiry? So I think they produce a quarterly magazine. Now, CFI recently, they merged within the past 10 years with the Richard Dawkins Foundation for Reason and Science. Their main goal is to combat pseudoscience and also encourage skepticism and also battling, also I think many of our organizations champion state-church separation and freedom for religion and government, separation of religion and government. And so they do file, among the many things that they do, is that they also challenge violations in court. They also go after pseudoscientists, people who are peddling bad information, and the like. However, there has been a challenge with their diversity in their diversity efforts. A few years ago, one of their programs was African Americans for Humanism, which unfortunately went away after close to 30 years. They produced the Billboard campaign back in 2012, which I was happy to be a part of. And we had done some collaborative work with them, but due to the changes within their organization, some of their programs did go away, and African Americans for Humanism was one of them, which I would argue left a bit of a gap in some areas of humanism as CFI purports to advocate. So they have an article apparently in this new issue called "How to End Racism," which was written by the director Robin Blumner, the executive director. So there is a partner group that we are affiliated with called the Black Humanists and Nonbelievers of Sacramento, based out of California. I've had the opportunity to participate in California's Free Thought Day, along with the secular groups there, and they are one of them. And we are closely aligned with our values, humanists and skepticism and atheists, our values as non-religious people. So one of their admins read the article in Free Inquiry and made this commentary, which I will share in part from their Facebook page. So the first part, in case you can't read it, I like to read it aloud because I think it deserves some voice to it. It says, this is my response to secular humanism and the colorblind society, which apparently was an article written by Robin Blumner. As a Black atheist, humanist, and leftist, I'm deeply offended and disappointed by Robin Blumner's secular humanism and the colorblind society. The op-ed argues that we live in a colorblind society, or that a colorblind society will supposedly end racism. Both views are wrong. A colorblind society fails to acknowledge the rich diversity and unique cultural contributions of different racial and ethnic groups. Our differences should not be erased, but should be critiqued, celebrated, and respected. If Ms. Blumner is a humanist, how does she fail to see that the leading Republican candidate and office holders nationwide who reflect the views of a significant portion of the white voting population are not colorblind. Their wage campaigns against critical race theory, quote unquote wokeness, and DEI as dog whistles against Black and other marginalized groups, deeming certain groups as an impediment to their racial hierarchy and so-called Christian values. Is Ms. Blumner, a humanist, a supporter of white supremacy? Systemic barriers persist for Black people in the US, including higher unemployment rates, higher discrimination, housing discrimination, educational disparities, and disproportionate incarceration rates. Many Black adults report experiencing racial discrimination and everyday microaggressions. The article also claims that the Nation of Islam, the Black Panther Party, and what she calls the identitarian left espouse neo-racism and Black supremacy. Again, she's wrong. Black supremacy has never been the goal of Black leaders and organizations like the Black Panther and the Nation of Islam. Their goals have centered around Black self-determination, which empowers Black communities to have control over their own political, social, and economic destinies. This includes the right to self-defense and establishing and maintaining institutions that serve their communities. It's about asserting their human rights, not establishing racial superiority. Blumner's article reads like a right-wing attack on Black people, and sadly, she does this under the philosophy of secular humanism, which I support. Secular humanism should highlight, not erase, systemic disparities and injustices. All groups of people should define what humanism means and not allow it to be co-opted by those who seek to ignore or downplay the realities of systemic racism and injustice and economic injustice by promoting the fallacy of a colorblind society. Now, I will stop there because I'll get back to that slide in a moment because I want to keep it there for a moment. Now, I am on a direct first name basis with Robin Blumner. She has supported Black nonbelievers in the past financially, especially after the murder of George Floyd by the Minneapolis police. However, I can say that I do share my concerns with some things that Robin has written and said over the years, and so have others. Part of the challenge, though, is that CFI has a huge donor and support base. If you are a member, they do have plenty of resources, and oftentimes it is not as diverse as it should be, just like many of our secular groups. And there can be a tendency to platform people who downplay racial justice issues and other social justice issues, even though they are very vocal about reproductive justice and other state-church separation, which does have a disproportionate impact on people of color. And it does not hurt us as a community to talk about how these things impact us and also what we can do as a community to help turn these things around. When there are blind eyes turned to what certain demographics face and in favor of just, thinking that only certain issues are important, then that's a problem. And if we are to be serious about racial injustice and diversity, equity, and inclusion, then we must be mindful and hold ourselves accountable and hold our counterparts accountable when they may be saying questionable things. And also ask yourself how many people in your groups and organizations might be espousing something similar. Now, I have not read the article, and I have asked Robin. I sent her an email asking if I could see the text of the article, because I do want to see it for myself. And I have certain questions like, how did she do research to make these statements? Who was it that she spoke to? And and does she have a better understanding of the organizations that she mentioned and the work that they did. Now, do I take issue with groups like the Nation of Islam? Yes, I do. Because first, partly because of the religion. However, it is important that in coming from Black communities, and if you've ever worked with communities of color, you do understand that the Nation of Islam was helping clean up drug addicts. For those of you who aren't familiar, they were helping heroin addicts overcome their addictions through natural means. So they were helping support them through that. Now, what they did afterwards, as far as and converting them to the religion, was similar to what we see in Christianity. They also promoted healthier eating habits, and also like more sustainability, like economic sustainability, which is, there's nothing wrong with that. There is absolutely nothing wrong with encouraging economic sustainability, especially for communities who have long been robbed of resources. And the Black Panther Party did that as well. The Black Panther Party, many people see them as brandishing weapons and appearing to be threatening, but they also had a breakfast program for children. They also did many things that helped empower Black folks in communities, and they were infiltrated by the FBI's counterintelligence program. And the FBI was also responsible for the deaths of some of their leaders, Fred Hampton in Chicago, for example, and also for the prosecution of some Black Panther leaders, some of which led to imprisonment, false imprisonment. So these were groups that were targeted by law enforcement, and it had an indelible impact on Black communities. And again, these are organizations that promoted self-awareness, self-empowerment, that were battling the very Eurocentric ideals that we are still faced with today. So I would say that this does raise a concern for people like myself and others who represent organizations for people of color, and for those of us who are working on diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts, because it does imply a false narrative, and it does appear to be speaking to people who might be unaware, and also might cloud their judgment, which is something that we accuse religious people of doing. And that is very, very misleading. And that is something that, this is just one example of what we deal with, even within our own communities. People really not understanding the history of racism and injustice, how that has impacted people of color and also marginalized groups, including other white folks. The one thing I have said is that white supremacy has impacted all of us. It has hurt all of us, not only because it tends to deter conversation, but that we also don't recognize how this impending theocracy really, really does hurt all of us as people. But it does disproportionately affect people of color. And again, it is important that as communities of people who identify as humanists and who value evidence-based values and practices, it is important to go beyond and understand what other demographics are going through, and not just simply be dismissive of it, because it may present a personal discomfort. Because if we're learning anything, then that means that we're growing out of our comfort zone. So I just wanted to show this as an example for anyone who might be a member of CFI and who also may subscribe to Free Inquiry, and to hear the perspective of someone of color and how they took that article, and that it should be taken very seriously. So getting into BN's work for the Black and secular community. So these are just a few of the faces of Black BN members and leaders, of course, myself included. But for those of you who aren't familiar with our organization, we have been around for 13 years now. We got started in 2011 as simply Black Nonbelievers of Atlanta. However, we expanded later that year because we decided to start affiliate groups and increase our presence across the country to help bring out more people of color, more Black folks who are non-religious, which even as Pew Research data shows, is still lacking in number and in visibility and visibility. So that is the crux of our work as an organization, and we host a number. We participate and host a number of activities, including general and support meetings. Annual events. We table. We have been featured in the media. We have been featured on CNN and CBS Sunday Morning and other print media as well as videos. We participate in research participation and collaborations. We co-sponsor a student scholarship, notably the Hurston Student Scholarship, along with the Secular Student Alliance. We host a lot of social engagements and outings, as you saw earlier. We collaborate with fellow secular organizations, including on the I'm Secular and I Vote campaign. And also the Godless Gospel Ensemble is a collaboration with a fellow organization because the existence of Black nonbelievers has allowed for this music project, which is just as important to our community as any book that is produced. We also we showcase that there is talent in our communities, and also organizations like Sunday Assembly do the same. We also have donated materials to the Smithsonian's National Museum for African American Culture for their archives and future exhibits. They are currently screening a documentary called God Talk, which is a result of interviews and panels that follows the lives of 7 Black millennials from different religious perspectives. One of them being atheists, and so we were able to provide the framework and the foundation for what Black non-religious community looks like, and to also help to understand the data which shows the rising number of nuns, the decline in church attendance, especially among younger people, and that this is being seen in Black communities. And so they realize that there are others who are forming their own communities and organizations, and we have been one of them. And we have been explicitly been the atheist representation for this institution. And so I'm very proud of that accomplishment, because I think we're the only secular organization that can say that we are a part of the Smithsonian. Now, I mean, I could be wrong about that, but as it now pertains to modern history and as history is being made, we are helping shape what Black communities look like, what Black non-religious representation looks like, which ultimately improves diversity, equity, and inclusion for everyone, including within our own community. So the work that Black Nonbelievers does is very, very important to these efforts and collaborations for the future. And we are a member organization of the Secular Coalition for America. Again, we work very closely with other secular organizations, both on a national and local levels. So, and then that is a part of our mission, and the work we do is to effectively engage directly. And that is what I like to do personally. But, as you can see, that there are definitely more of us out here, and that we are not afraid to get out there and do the work that needs to be done. So when it comes to how can trust be established and maintained, and how as communities and organizations we can continue to improve on our diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts, which does include trust, because we have to be able to know that we trust each other and that our organizations can be trusted to do the right thing and do the work that is required. So how can trust be established and maintained in order for our groups to be more inclusive, more diverse, and also be more progressive? So the first is listen and learn, but don't expect us to completely educate you, right? As a community that prides itself on evidence, that prides ourselves on knowing and learning more, when it comes to the issues and challenges that people of color face, it is important that the entire community just overall listens and learns more, but also do that follow-up work, and also and follow the recommendations that are being given to you by those of us who are doing this work. Do encourage feedback and take it seriously. One of the challenges that has been brought to my attention over the years, especially from people who don't understand why they may have like maybe a one-time attendee of color, or and then they find that they disappear and they don't come back. Now there may be reasons for that that are personal and have nothing to do with the group itself. But also, it could be that perhaps the person did not feel heard or did not feel seen, not just simply because of lack of representation, but also due to the overall environment of the group, and which has happened in a number of non-religious spaces. So these are things that are important. If there is room for feedback, encourage it, but also take it seriously. Do adjust your attitudes and actions when presented with new information. Again, there may be points that are brought up and things that are posed that are, it may be easy to become defensive, or it may be sensitive to you, because no one wants to think that they are personally doing anything wrong, right? And the truth of the matter is you probably are not. However, again, it is meant to show that there could be challenges that need to be worked on, and that it isn't personal, but it is, again, something that should be taken seriously, especially as we move towards growth and change. I also encourage people to continue to trust and verify, which means maintain the rules of evidence and skepticism, right? We don't just simply have to take anything at face value. If something is being relayed to you as a point of reference or a source of information, then it is important to do your research and your verification to see if it holds water, if it holds weight. We should definitely continue to do that. And also, when it comes to information that it may be dispersed or shared, that doesn't sound right coming from our most noted voices. We should always be taking that seriously, and also just trusting and verify, trust but verify, meaning that again, it's always worth looking into and not just simply taking at face value. Do check or redirect any problematic members of organizations and or leaders, and remove them if necessary. Now, our organizations, even though many of them are volunteer, and it can be painstaking to do this type of management, we must remember that it is management, and that even if people may not, Wendell, can you mute your microphone, please? Welcome. Thank you. So, there, like anything, especially when new information is being presented, there might be some folks who are resistant and who might become defensive. It is our responsibility as group members, leaders, organizers, to try to help others learn and redirect them if possible. If they are making members, especially new members, uncomfortable, the challenges should be addressed. hopefully more so in a way that can make everyone continue to participate in a very communal fashion, meaning that we are able to work through and resolve our problems instead of just simply eliminating them. However, if members of the organizations continue to compose to continue to pose problems, then corrective action may need to be taken. And as unpleasant as that may be, sadly, there are some skeptics groups, some humanist groups who think that everyone's voice should be taken seriously, or everyone's voice matters no matter who they are. And we take as coming and representing a minority demographic, I do take exception to that, because there have been plenty of people who have made very derogatory statements towards further marginalized groups under the guise of, well, we're all in this together. I don't see racism, the whole colorblind thing that I was just discussing earlier, as well as as well as also redirecting and challenging folks who may be making demeaning comments towards women, young people, and so on and so forth. So it isn't simply a racial thing. It is also about who else from a further marginalized group may be uncomfortable, and who also deserve to be a part of the group. So please do check any problematic members of your organizations as well as leaders, and take the necessary steps to help improve, or you may have to improve the group overall. So that's very important. Do implement diverse programming and leadership into your organizations. So I know that a few years back, when there was more of a push to discuss racial justice, economic justice, and other things that impact people of color, there were individuals in these groups and organizations that complained about, well, I thought we were only supposed to focus on humanism, or I thought that we were only supposed to focus on, like, well, how bad religion is. So, but once many of us leave religion and have deconstructed the concept of God, and also are looking to build communities, then there are other challenges and issues that we face and that we need to address head on. And so when we have folks who share our identities and who share our values, if they show potential for leadership, and if there is an opportunity to at least bring more people in and maintain their participation, then that will have to be different, not just look different, but be different. And if someone from these populations and demographics have ideas and suggestions that can be implemented successfully within your organizations, do it. It only serves to help us learn more as we go, and also show that our organizations and groups can adapt and adjust with the times. So these are very, very, very important. Do collaborate and participate with other groups and organizations regularly. Do not make diversity, inclusion, and equity and inclusion efforts one time, or even just like one month out of the year. It is important for us to continue to collaborate and participate with other groups and other entities, and show that we are committed to diversity, committed to equity, committed to inclusion, as well as community building. That is definitely important. Also, give Black, Indigenous people of color space when needed. There are times where we may retreat to our own section of the world, just like there are conversations for women only, for men only. I think these things are very helpful, because it does help us understand things that and it helps us work on things that we need to And it's not just simply about like segregating ourselves. We heard that as well. But it is important to give Black, Indigenous, people of color folks space when needed, because this stuff is heavy. It is a heavy load that we are taking on. And for some of us, the lifting is even more heavy. So if we need a break, or if we need time to just, to just regroup, don't always take it as anything personal. You might need to allow folks to come back in their own space and time and just continue the work that you do. Also, have information and resources available. If there are groups, especially racial justice groups, that are active in your area, and someone is looking for more information, even if they're not in your area, even if they're a national entity or somewhere nearby, it's always good to be able to refer folks to other organizations that might be better suited for them or best suited for them. It does not take away from the work you're doing. In fact, it can only enhance it when you are able to point others in a direction that they might be needed. That they might need. So do have information and resources available, especially for Black, Indigenous, people of color who may be in your groups. And last but not least, do donate and support. Much of the work that we do cannot be done without resources. And so even if you are not an active supporter with any organization, it is important to donate, to make your voices heard behind the scenes. And if there are organizations that speak to you and that speak to an area of interest, and that the work that they do is important, please do donate and support them. And there are some pictures that I always like to show, because I do like visuals in my presentation, so that we are getting a better understanding of the subject matter at hand. So first, these are actually real pictures, right, that have been taken from actual events. So there was one that I found. There was a sign that was made during COVID, right? Black Lives Matter, treat racism like COVID-19. And I think that is a very, very good rule of thumb to have. Just to try to at least get a better understanding and perspective of what it is that we are dealing with, especially if you are a non-person of color and you are looking to do better work and make changes. Also, these are 7 important principles. Donate, read, learn, converse, listen, educate, protest, and vote. All of these things make up activism. And I also would include socialize. Social engagement is extremely important to diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts, as well as community building, as well as change. How we interact socially, even with our differences, really, really helps. And even if you think you might be too old or of a certain age, I don't like to say old, right? I refer to our older members as our mature members, or members of a certain age. So to try to combat like the whole ageism thing, because I don't think that there is anyone that is too old to learn anything new. So it is important for us to actually implement these practices as much as we can. And last but not least, one of my favorite groups is called Moonchild. They are a neo soul group, and guess what? Their main members are white. I mean, their music is absolutely fantastic. They do have a large Black following, and they recognize that. And this is at one of their shows that they did in Atlanta in 2019, and I had the opportunity to attend. But this is a phrase that they use. They recognize they are 3 individuals from California, extremely multi-talented. And they recognize that they have privilege as white people. And they realize that they are white people that are in a genre that is dominated by Black folks. Of course, that doesn't mean that there aren't any white folks in them. And they work with a lot of Black musicians. but they recognize that they have privilege where others do not. And they have a very simple phrase, which is spend your privilege. We often talk about in our communities, and I'm talking about secular communities, and among the non-religious, humanist, atheist groups that are trying to unlearn and learn more about what it means to be more diverse and equitable and inclusive. Oftentimes it stops at book clubs and what we read, and not necessarily what we put into practice. And I love how they put it simply, because sometimes that is the hardest thing for people to understand, that if you are a person who has means or even a way to contribute in the smallest way towards racial justice, be more diverse and more inclusive, then spend that privilege. Put your money where your mouth is. That often goes a whole lot longer and makes a huge difference in the work that we're all doing. And if your organization is committed to this work and would like to do so in the name of your organization, put money towards that so that you can continue to put money towards other initiatives. That is going to be important, because our organizations cannot survive without our member support. But it also means contributing just a little bit more to your own organization so that your organization can contribute more. And you can do so individually as well as collectively. Many of us tend to think of things in simply like straight and linear terms, and as if there's only one solution to these problems. And it's not. It's often going to be multifaceted. It is often going to be painstaking at times. And oftentimes it's going to be very tedious, because it will be the little things that we do and the little things that we implement that makes things better. And the seemingly small things that we don't understand and come to a better understanding to have will make a huge difference. So here's some recommended reading. I usually put viewing because I have at times put like documentaries in references, because for those of us who may not necessarily be readers, it may be good to watch informational programming, especially if you are more of a visual learner. So that is also another point of diversity, how we learn, what we do as far as education and information. So here are a few, at least just three. A Space for Us by Michelle Cassandra Johnson, a guide for leading Black, Indigenous, and people of color affinity groups. Now, this is good for those of you who are involved with planning for national events. For example, there is the Pittsburgh Racial Justice Summit that takes place. It's usually out of Pittsburgh. Yeah, it is out of Pittsburgh. And I'd like to give a shout out to John Hooper, who some of you may know. He is the treasurer for the American Humanist Association, as well as the Humanist Foundation. He's involved with both groups. And for those of you who may be involved with other national organizations that produce conferences, some of them have started implementing affinity spaces for Black folks, LGBTQ folks, women, and etc. And so it's good, even if you don't represent that demographic, it's good to know how to navigate it, because I contend that you don't have to be directly impacted by something in order to understand it and show empathy and also make changes. And that is something that is often lost on a lot of people. So that's a recommended resource. Also, some of you may be familiar with this book, When Colorblindness is Not the Answer, by Dr. Anthony Penn, who just recently released the book, The Practice of Black Disbelief, and a guide to like Black humanism and Black nonbelievers. But I think that this particular book is still relevant to this subject matter. Because again, if we are going to work on our diversity efforts, we cannot simply be colorblind. That's just not going to be feasible. Also, conflict is not abuse, overstating harm, community responsibility, and the duty of repair. So this also puts onus on the further marginalized groups who also need to understand that it's going to take community building, is going to take a team effort for us to work through this. I cannot simply expect for you to improve, the audience that I'm talking to, and I am not doing the necessary work that I need to. That is very disingenuous. That is, as human beings, we often have areas of improvement. There are areas of bias. There are often areas that, there are often things that may be that we may be emotionally tied to. However, it is important for us to continue to work through that, better understand it, reflect on it, and also improve on it, and change it when necessary. And it doesn't necessarily mean that, just because we share a difference in perspectives, or even if we come to a point of conflict where there's disagreement, it doesn't mean that we are necessarily beating each other up, or know that we have to. There is care and compassion in helping each other learn and helping each other grow, as there should be. There should always be that human that human characteristic, and that effort to help us grow. And I know I certainly try to do this as much as I possibly can. So it is something that, again, leading by example is often a term that we use, and I think is very important. So I'd like to ask that you consider donating to Black Nonbelievers. We have availed ourselves of the QR code the stage and age. So if you like, you can scan this QR code with your phone and make a tax-deductible donation to Black Nonbelievers to help us continue with our work. We are a 501c3 organization. Donations to us are tax deductible. It helps with our ongoing programming. It helps with our events. And it also helps with our resources, and as well as our collaboration efforts. So if you are so inclined, please do scan the QR code or look up our website, blacknonbelievers.org. And here are all of the places you can find us on social media. We are on Facebook, Instagram, X, formerly known as Twitter, and YouTube. We have a YouTube channel. I am so pleased to announce that recently I engaged in a debate with Kent Hovind, the creationist apologetic. Some of you may be familiar with him. He is similar to Ken Ham and William Lane Craig as some of the other known apologists. And being able to live stream that on our YouTube channel allowed us the ability to be monetized. So whenever we go live on YouTube, you have the opportunity to donate through there as well. So you can subscribe to our YouTube channel to watch previous videos, as well as stay up to date with what we have going on, and to stream us live. And also check us out and support. So we host a live stream show every first and third Saturday of the month, where we feature special guests. We also keep people aware of what is going on in the community and who we are collaborating with, as well as our upcoming events. We are still embarking on BNCCon 2024, which has some amazing special guests. We will be on Royal Caribbean's Independence of the Seas. There are sponsorship opportunities that are available for that event. And one thing I like to say is that, really traveling, for those of you who are travel enthusiasts, it really does expand your horizons and helps to open up your mind about the world and how it looks outside of the United States, as well as what other demographics and other people have to endure, especially in tourist destinations. Because oftentimes when we can take in the beauty of the surroundings, but also understand that many people in the local economy depend on tourism, and also how it is vastly inequitable. It is definitely, you begin to see a stark contrast, and you begin to see the lines of disparities and inequities when it comes to the people who live there. And I think that is something that we can be very, very much aware of as we travel throughout the world and see things and still enjoy ourselves, but also having this perspective that you might have not have had before. And also, again, we do co-sponsor the Hurston Scholarship, which was named after famed noted freethinker and author Zora Neale Hurston. So the deadline to apply has passed. However, in our ongoing efforts, again, we co-sponsor, we award this jointly with the Secular Student Alliance, and we will be choosing our winner soon. So we do encourage you to support our efforts in education as well. And so with that, I'd like to say thank you all for, if you are tuning in online, and for everyone who has joined in person. I hope that this was very informational and very helpful for you. Again, there is a lot of work ahead still that we have to go, especially this year. There's a lot that we are facing, and how we continue to work together and engage each other will definitely make a huge difference here. So thank you all once again, and I will turn it back over to your facilitators. Okay, I'm not sure if I'm not sure if you can, I can't hear anyone in the audience, but if there are any questions that you may have, I guess we can start. Were there any other slides that you needed me to go over again? Was there anything that anyone would like to see? Oh, also before, while I have you here, I have on one of our newest shirts. So we do have an online store. So here is our here is our newest product, and here's what it says. It says Jesus was thrown under the bus so that God could get clout. And that shirt, yes. So here's what Jesus was thrown under the bus so that God could get clout. So this quote came from Edith Gray, who was our new co-host for our show In the Cut. She was recently on a show called Across Generations with former MSNBC host Tiffany Cross, and they did an episode about religion in Black communities, especially among Black women. And so she represented atheism. And so what was really great about that was that, and of course, when there is a distinct difference when we are engaging, especially Black audiences that are predominantly religious. But we have never shied away from, the discussion. So Edith famously, she so most notedly said that on the show, and it was fantastic. And we're just like, well, where's the lie in that, right? Where is the lie, especially when it comes to the crucifixion story? So, it is definitely provocative, but it is something to get, we try to give people something to think about. This shirt is available on our website, in our online store. We do sell merchandise as well to raise money, and we just recently produced this shirt as a way to help as a fundraiser as well. So we do have this shirt available for sale on our website wherever you may think you want to wear it. So yes.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. We can't hear you.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
I'm sorry?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not sure I heard that.
Yeah.
Yes, I do have time for questions. Yes. Does anyone have any questions?
I think you covered an awful lot.
Yeah, that was fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry?
You have to-
Yeah.
Doesn't.
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Ah,
wonderful. There's a common belief that I've heard around that uh, Black people tend to have a stronger uh, belief than people of other races. I was wondering if you had any thoughts on that.
So, like I said before, there are even Pew research shows that Black communities are still very highly religious. And part of that is because of, the institutional, having Christianity a force during the period of enslavement in the United States, and Christianity being codified into law, but also the role that the church played during times of like Jim Crow and this, this holding on to this belief in God, especially when times were absolutely horrendous, which they were, especially for people of color in the United States. So it's really important to understand the role that the church and religion has played in Black communities. There is definitely a more cultural, or what is perceived to be cultural, about religion in Black communities. And we have to remember that one of the reasons why many Black churches were started was because they were not allowed in white churches. Oftentimes the teachings were different, even though the doctrine is pretty much still the same. But it became a resource for Black communities that were not available or readily available at a time when it was very much needed. And so it became so interwoven into the identity of the Black community that now it's almost hard to separate. That isn't to say that it isn't common, especially in more rural white communities. But yes, when we see this being so, so grossly represented when it comes to in Black entertainment, into politicians knowing that they can pander to Black folks that are in churches or that are part of religious institutions, that becomes a challenge as well. So yes, it is definitely more displayed and even in more colorful ways in Black communities that has now seeped into other communities of color. We do definitely see it similarly in evangelical white spaces, but it definitely takes on a whole life of its own in Black communities, and that is backed up through statistics and research.
Your music is, are there things that you've published on your website or anything?
The music, oh, like the Godless Gospel?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I can post the link here into, as a matter of fact, if you have time, I can share a snippet of it with you all if you'd like to see. Let me pull it up. Give me just a moment. And yeah, let's listen to some Godless Gospel here. So yeah, it was let me pull up the FFRF YouTube channel so that we can hear, so that you can hear some of the music, because we would like for you to support and and purchase more of it. And it's just really good music, period. It's just absolutely fantastic. Even if you are not a gospel, even if you're not a gospel enthusiast, and I'm not, like, admittedly, I am not a gospel, like, I like some gospel songs, but it's not like my favorite genre. But this music is just so absolutely fantastic that I think it is just, that it is just great for all of us to hear. So let me go to FFRF and Godless Gospel.
Steve Martin has been our only reference as far as non-believers.
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
Any others besides Steve Martin, who has written.
Oh,
Tim Mitchell.
yes. So there are like other musicians, but when it comes to like you're right. When it comes to like music, okay, so I have it up. This was from our performance. This was from our performance at FFRS convention last year in 2023, and they also debuted it on their show Free Thought Matters. So yes, that might be the main point of of reference as far as like the Steve Martin song, the atheist song that he did. I remember that was so cool. But I'm gonna play part of the first song we did. It's called Joy to the World. Can y'all hear it?
You ready to celebrate? Woo! You know what we're gonna be celebrating tonight? Reason. We got joy, right? Joy to the world. You know what? It's feeling real churchy in here, isn't it? Joy to the world. These robes feel pretty churchy, don't they? Joy to the world. You know what? I think we should lose the robes. Let's get rid of the churchy vibe. Yeah, let's have some real joy. Everybody shout joy. Joy. Say joy. Joy. Say joy. Joy. Y'all sound good. Joy. Joy. Everybody say joy. Joy. Joy to the world. Woo! Yeah.
So if you'd like to hear more of that, I'm sharing the link in the chat. If you'd like to hear more of, and trust that by the end of that performance, everyone was out of their seats and dancing. And the first time we did it, they wanted more. It was just fantastic, and it really does feel good to be able to sing those lyrics of liberation. It really does feel good to be able to say, you know what, gospel is not relegated to religion. Gospel does simply mean the good, spreading the good news and the good word. Dan Barker will say that, and do so in a way that can resonate with those. And there's some real talent within our communities. There really, really is some fantastic talent. And I can honestly say I am proud to say that it is due to the work of Black nonbelievers and our existence that helped make this 30-year concept of Dan Barker's possible. And so therefore, things like that do need support. So I hope you enjoyed it just as much as we enjoyed performing it, and we will be performing it in the future. So yeah.
Great question. Question back.
There are other secular Black groups nationally that BN is affiliated with or works with?
Are there other, I'm sorry?
Are there other secular Black groups that BN works with or is in affiliation with nationally?
So I'm proud to say that we are the largest and most recognized Black secular organization in the United States. As I mentioned earlier, you have the Black Humanists and Nonbelievers of Sacramento. There are other groups that have come and gone. Unfortunately, African Americans for Humanism is no longer an existing entity. We do also connect with international groups. Like, for example, there is the Association of Black Humanists that is based in London, England. And we have collaborated with them before. There's also Humanists of Ghana. There are groups in Nigeria. There's a group in Barbados. They are affiliated with Humanists International. So there are other groups of color that do exist. As far as in the United States, there are more local groups, but by and large, Black Nonbelievers has been the most sustained Black secular organization. There were some who, there used to be Black Atheists of America, which we actually participated. We hosted a rally with them back in 2013. However, the executive director went on to pursue her law career. We are still very much in contact and very much are in good standing with each other. But yes, by far and large, we are it. I mean, we have through our hard work, we are the organization that is most recognized and the largest within the US. Yes.
Do you feel like receives like a lot of support and gets embraced in a lot of spaces, or like how much pushback or like threats, or I mean, like how much of that do you guys have to deal with regularly?
You mean like as far as like pushback and for support and such? Oh my gosh, it's almost like pulling teeth. But oftentimes what we experience, especially in secular spaces, we have had people accuse us of being racist and separatist. We've had people say, oh my gosh, well, why are you simply a Black group? They've done the whole colorblind thing, right? They don't recognize that there are distinct challenges that people of color face, especially when it comes to how we live even our everyday lives as non-religious people, especially in Black communities. And oftentimes, when it comes to at least getting support, it has been challenging because of the fact that we are dealing with a vulnerable population. So many of our members don't necessarily have as much disposable income to support the work that we do. But we do have members who contribute what they can, and we have also gotten support from other donors in the community, but not as much as like a CFI would. As far we are, and then pretty much the person who does most of the like logistics and administrative work, you're looking at her. So it's like, I am the president. And now we have expanded our board. We do have like volunteers that work with us. But as far as it being like, I've been really, really hands-on as far as running the organization. And it has been because people recognize the importance of the work. But as far as getting it financially supported to the point where we can be even more of a viable resource, that has been a challenge. I mean, if there are grants that we can secure, I mean, I would love if, there were like $1 million that could just fall out of the sky for us, right? Because that could help all of us. But, when it comes to the perception of our organization, and sometimes it means that people are just looking at it as, well, that's their problem. It doesn't impact us. That often affects, and then some people who may secretly hold the same types of views as a religious right-winger when it comes to Black folks, even if they don't realize that they're saying it. These are things that I challenge all of us to consider as far as our perspectives on people of color, communities of color, and the work that we're doing. And that, and that the work is definitely, and one thing I like to say is that, there was mention of the Black Panther Party earlier. The Black Panther Party had plenty of white supporters. It had plenty of white donors who understood that its mission was to, uplift and engage Black communities. And so they just, they supported the work financially without feeling that they had to simply tell the leadership what to do. So I think it's important to understand that there have been many Black organizations and many supporters, white supporters of Black organizations, who recognize the work that, recognize the importance of the work. But we certainly have come across folks who have, I don't understand why there needs to be a Black Nonbelievers. Like, you guys are just racist, without even looking at our website, without even looking at the collaborations that we've done. Without it, they just automatically, just shut it down, which is, as a community, that's one of the worst things we can do. Yes.
Are there small local chapters that we can collaborate with? I mean,
yes. So
like we are.
Yeah, so there's a group in Philadelphia. We established a affiliate back in 2023. I can certainly put you in touch with the affiliate leader there. We also have affiliates in Charlotte, North Carolina, Detroit, Michigan, Chicago, Illinois. We're still looking to reactivate our Washington, D.C. affiliate. And Richmond, Virginia, and wherever else there is a need for, I always encourage people to check out the local groups that already exist, because I think that it is important that if there are groups that align with their values, and if there is, and if there is value that can be added to it with your participation, then do it. However, if there is a need to form a Black Nonbelievers affiliate in your area, and you think you can get engagement and work on things, then we can do that as well. But yeah, there is an affiliate in Philadelphia. All right. Were there any more questions? Any more thoughts too?
Thank you very much for your time.
All right, thank y'all so much. Please do visit our website. Please do learn more about us. Please do support us and encourage other people to support us if you can. So thank you all very much and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks.
Thank you.
World.
Yes, joy to the world.